Welcome to iBerkshiresTV. We have with us Town Administrator Jay Green of Adams and North Adams Mayor Thomas Bernard. And we're going to be talking a little bit about what's going to be happening in our local governments here with the changes that the governor made in this past week with the reopening of Massachusetts plan. So first, welcome, Jay and Mayor. How are you today?
So far, so good, Tammy. Thanks. Thanks for making this time available to us.
Same here.
So let's get started. First, I think we want to talk about the governor's reopening plan was announced on Monday. It is somewhat vague in some areas, we can say, I think, and very specific for certain manufacturers. So my question is, how is it affecting how our local governments are going to be operating over the next couple of weeks? And who would like to take that first?
I'll take the first swing. You know, for local government, in terms of the operation of, say, City Hall, it will be business as usual, or maybe business as unusual, which is to say, we've brought back staff who had been working remotely, but City Hall itself will remain closed to the public, except for those things where people need to come in by appointment. We will follow the office guidance in terms of masking and cleaning and making sure that we are in compliance with those things. But we will not be reopening City Hall to the public, at least in the first phase of phase one.
And I believe that city crews, they were doing staggered schedules, and sort of everybody's been brought back, I believe, this week because now we're working outdoors.
Yeah, it really felt like because the distancing became effectively part of the work, that standing back up to a more normal schedule or a more regular schedule made sense. And you know, I got good input from the public service commissioner and the team, just to make sure that you know, we were checking in, we were considering the angles on that, and so far it seems to be working.
And Jay, how are things going to be working in Adams now?
So DPW has been up to full staff, full days now for probably about 30 days, for about a month. Just as the weather changed for us, we decided to, and we have a much smaller crew. Same thing, single man truck rule, mask up as possible, within 6 feet, wear a mask, and for the most part it's lawn mowing, etc. So DPW is normal, police has been normal, inspectional services has been full-time. We've never shut down construction sites. We've been accepting and reviewing building permits with site-specific safety plans as we've gone along. Council on Aging and Library has been closed essentially to the public. Town Hall has been closed to the public with reduced hours for staff, including some furloughs. We met Tuesday morning with our facilities subcommittee here, and we're taking a look at what a reopening plan will look like. And I would imagine that's going to mirror the city as well. The mayor and I spoke this morning. We're going to try to mirror and align as much as we can so that people have the same level of services in each community. There's no difference. So like the mayor said, the town's going to pretty much do the same thing. We're going to look at it. We're going to see how it affects us. And we'll probably bring back most staff to full-time probably by the end of June. And then we'll take a look at maybe some of our smaller boards will be able to meet. Our selectmen have been meeting partial remote. Our finance committee met entirely remote. Our board of health has now met a couple times entirely remote. Our planning board has met. So we're probably going to ramp up some of those meetings with our small boards, small memberships here at Town Hall. Ask the public to call in from home, and then maybe sometime in July we'll take a look and see what it looks like there. We're mostly concerned again with the sanitation aspect of it from a custodial standpoint, as well as making sure that the staff, when they come back full time, feel as though they have a safe work environment.
Yeah, my thought had been there hadn't been a lot of slowdowns in the way the government had been functioning. Most everyone's boards had been meeting remotely, if at all possible. I mean, I've been covering a lot of them as we've gone on. So it doesn't feel like anything has really stopped outside of finance because everybody kind of got slowed down on finance because of the state budget. So I think everything else had been operating fairly smoothly. Can I say that?
It certainly has felt that way to me. You know, and I think, you know, Jay would echo this for Adams. The reason it has gone largely smoothly is because our staff has been adaptable. They've been responsive. You know, they've been thoughtful about what it takes to you know, to slow down, to change, to work differently. You know, one of the places, you know, the office kind of like, you know, Jay mentioned inspectional services, and our folks are busy. You know, the Office of Community Development has continued to work on a number of their projects as well.
Yeah, I would say, Tammy, is primarily just the public component. Like, for example, you know, everything is, as the mayor said, everything has slowed down. It hasn't stopped. It's been a little bit more difficult to move things forward. I would say for Adams, it's any project that requires a public meeting component has been a little bit more difficult. For example, we're looking for a new police chief. We're now in a search for an interim police chief for 6 months, just so that our chief can retire on schedule. We don't hold him back, and we allow a little bit more runway time in order to put the public process through. So that's the prime example of the type of functions that have slowed down, because we simply can't gather and we can't have a public forum. But everything else has moved along, albeit sluggish.
But, and obviously the next thing coming up for Adams in particular is town meeting and elections. So have you figured out how you're going to do that?
We have. June 1st is our town election on schedule. It'll be held at the DPW garage with proper distancing, proper sanitation. We'll have a custodian on duty for the entire day. Thanks to the Northern Berkshire Regional Emergency Planning Committee and Mass Emergency Management Agency, we've received sufficient supply of masks and gloves. And Town Clerk Haley Mezwar is on top of it. She has a great plan. We're grateful for our election staff that are coming in, that are willing to work. And about 50% of our folks have already pulled absentee ballots or mail-in ballots. We have a drop box at Town Hall. She addressed the public last night at our selectmen's meeting. She's in the office. She's still in the office now, even though Town Hall staff hours are 9 to 1. So we're ready for town election June 1st. Town meeting is scheduled for June 22nd. We have our budget set to go, albeit ready for changes, but we do have a budget. It went through the selectmen last night. We're due to put it through the Finance Committee one last time for approval next week. So we should have a nice succinct warrant with our articles on it, financial articles on it. And we're looking now specifically as to which open space under town control we have that will make for a nice open space for open meeting, town meeting. The 10 person limit rule only does not apply to legislative bodies, and it doesn't apply for open spaces outside. Right. So to hold a town meeting, we feel that's the best way to meet the intent of the law, the spirit of the law, offer it safely to our town meeting members and have it. So whether that's going to be at Bow Field, the Agricultural Fairgrounds, or Renfrew Field, we're still researching. We have to look at it for compliance with the American with Disabilities Act, electrical needs, etc. But we're pretty confident we'll be able to move forward under that theory.
And unfortunately, a lot of other things in both the town and the city are not going to be happening this summer. The Susan B. Anthony Memorial celebration has been canceled. 4th of July, well, the Memorial Day parades are canceled, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't know about the mayor's downtown celebration at this point. So. Yeah,
we're looking at the list. You know, we're going to be getting out an announcement about what is and isn't happening over the next couple of days. The press release is sitting on my desk, and I just need to go through it one more time and make that announcement. You know, we started the year pretty ambitious that we would be doing a 125th anniversary celebration in April, and that's one of the first things that fell by the wayside. Definitely the sense is that likely won't happen until very late in 2020, if not being pushed into 21, and we're still making that determination.
Well, I can always say that the 125th maybe didn't actually happen until the new mayor came into office, which would have been the year later. So
the year later, something. Okay.
You can always find it, right?
Yeah. You know, there's a you know, the folks who organized Motorama made the decision already that they're not going to go forward. I had been trying to hold out some hope that downtown Celebration could kind of be the reopening, but I don't think that's gonna happen. And so anything prior to that, I think we're gonna see a cancellation of, and it's hard. This is the truly insidious part of this pandemic for a lot of us, is we're going into the season where we gather together. We're social people, and we're asking people, particularly as the weather is getting to the way we hope it is, that that late spring beautiful season before it gets too hot and sticky, to still keep their distance, to follow. The governor's gone from stay at home to safer at home, but the message still is, stick to that 10 person limit. Don't go out except for essential errands. Public parks are restricted to passive recreation. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and monitor your symptoms. So if you're not feeling well, definitely kind of hold yourself back.
So next week, so the most immediate thing coming now is next week, smaller stores are going to be able to start opening up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the week after that, it's going to get a little bit looser. Are your inspection services prepared to deal with these openings? And how are you going to regulate them? Because the governor basically just left it in your hands to do.
You want to go first on that one, Jay?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that one. So we're now entering an era of self-accountability and self-responsibility. And that doesn't just pertain to an individual wearing a mask, social distancing, being reasonable in terms of where they go, et cetera. But now it's going to translate over into business owners. Essentially, the message from Boston is this: here's the standards you have to meet. If you meet them and you're safe and there's no complaints from the public, they don't feel their safety is jeopardized by visiting your establishment, all is well. If you open a business ahead of time, if you open a business and don't take into effect the request for sanitation, masks, and distancing, then there's likelihood of a complaint. And then unfortunately, it's a reactive mode of enforcement. It's a very difficult predicament to be in, but it is an era of self-accountability and business accountability. Reopening Massachusetts, the website gives a lot of guidance. It's very basic guidance. This is very simple stuff. And we feel pretty confident that as public officials, we simply say, meet those guidelines, be reasonable, be smart about it, keep your mind and eye set on protecting your customers, and you'll be okay. We can't ramp up inspectional services. The town has one building commissioner and essentially one code enforcement officer. And they also serve as an informational resource. So we're going to have to look at that very carefully. Our police department has gotten a few complaints already. They've gone, investigated, provided public outreach, and forwarded those complaints to our Board of Health for action by the health agent. So that's kind of how we're doing it. But really, Tammy, it's all about self-accountability. Follow those guidelines. Keep the intent of those in front of you, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I'll just kind of amplify a couple of things that Jay said. He mentioned customers, but it's also employees. So if employees have concerns that they raise to the Board of Health, and we do have partners at the state level. We've got the Department of Labor Standards, and we've got the Department of Public Health that also are tasked with this. But it's also a couple things to keep in mind. The fact that a business can be open doesn't mean that a business must open. They can take the time to make sure that they're ready. And I think a perfect example, not in the business side, but is our places of worship are being very thoughtful about meeting the standards and the guidance in their sector specific guidelines to make sure that they can be open and that they're balancing the service they provide to their congregants with the safety. But this is a process of self-review. No business needs to be inspected before they open, and it will be, as Jay said, reactive, and we will take care of things. But the guidance also, you talked about some of the other places where things aren't terribly specific. The specificity here is the goal is education and compliance, not enforcement. So even if you look at the guidance that's come out from the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, it's a progressive process that says, if you get a complaint, the first step is a consultation. It's a verbal warning, and then it's a written warning, and then it's an escalating series of fines, and then it's a cease and desist. But with a 24-hour window between each of those things. So you have to get pretty far into the process of that escalation before there's a strong enforcement push. So businesses that can and that want to are going to follow, and then the places we're going to have challenges is the businesses that don't want to act in the interest of public health and public safety.
And there have been a few around the state that have already done that. There was a gym in, I think, Oxford that just opened and just refused. They said they'd just pay the fines. And we already know that in North Adams, we had Crane, which said they didn't feel like it needed to follow those restrictions up to a point on what's necessary, unnecessary. So how do you deal with these kinds of, we don't want to encourage people to do that, but you have to be prepared to deal with these types of situations, and particularly if people are complaining. Yeah.
Well, and that's it. The word that Jay used is the right word. It's reactive. It's going to be when we hear something, when something goes to the health department, they'll need to investigate, and they'll need to follow that escalation protocol. The fact is now it's got nothing to do with not nothing to do, but the local guidance. It is these mandatory standards. It's these sector guidelines, and it's a combination. If you look at the messaging coming out, it's a combination of what's mandatory, the things that businesses must do, and then things that are best practices, the shoulds. And when we get a complaint about the musts, we can be stronger in the enforcement than we can with the shoulds. But the general principle and the general premise here is we're trying to keep the community safe. We're trying to keep the economy moving forward slowly, and I'm sure slower than a lot of people would like, but it's because all of this is going to be rooted in data. And if you look at the plan, the way that it's built in such a way that the data tells you when you can move forward, but it also tells you if you need to hit pause or move backward. And it's going to be again, we keep harping on the words personal responsibility. It's going to be the actions that people take for themselves, for their families, for their customers, for their employees that determine how successful we are in Adams, in North Adams, in the Northern Berkshires, in Berkshire County, in Western Mass, and in Massachusetts.
Go ahead.
I would say, and nothing that's come out so far says that strong indicators or positive trends in the Berkshires are going to give us the latitude to move any faster than any other part of the state.
Yeah, that is certainly comments that have come up because we have done very well compared to considering we started out as a hotspot. Yeah. We've done pretty well, but we still have 500. We hit 500 active cases, right? Yeah. Just the other day, and we did have 37 people die. Granted, almost 2/3 were in the nursing home, but that still doesn't matter. I mean, people have died because of this here, and we are dependent, and to some extent, on tourism, which brings people from outside in, which is not the best thing to be relying on in a pandemic. On the other hand, I see a lot of people wearing masks. For all the people who are screaming on Facebook about their rights or whatever, I go out and there are people wearing masks. They're wearing masks in the stores. I see them wearing masks in their cars when they probably don't really be needing to. But hey, I see people taking precautions. A large number of them. So I think that speaks well to why our numbers have not been nearly as high as other places.
And I think we can expect that masks are becoming and will continue to become fashion accessories. They will, like a baseball cap, like a favorite tie, a pocket square, it will become an accessory. I'm sure that, the next time Jay and I go to, buy a suit or a sport coat, somebody's going to try and sell us a mask that accessorizes
With the handkerchief that you have in the pocket, right?
Mine matches the red, white, and blue theme for Memorial Day. So.
No, but that's definitely part of the situation is, and again, we've tried to send these messages locally, but the governor who's standing up there every day has said it too. My mask protects you, your mask protects me, and that's what we're really trying to ensure as we get back, slowly, and it's going to be halting. It's going to be lurching. I all this week have struggled with the endpoint being new normal, and I don't know what a better term for it would be. But what I do know is that we're not going to hit a point through this reopening plan that is you step into the Wayback Machine and hit the reset button, and the world goes back to what it looked and felt like in early March, when we stood in the lobby of City Hall and declared our state of emergency and talked about the initial steps that we were taking, closing our schools ahead of the governor and the state order, and beginning the active response phase of this. It's not going to go back to, I went back to my notes, and it was my February staff meeting where I started saying to my team, what do we need to be thinking about with regard to this coronavirus thing? I think they hadn't even named it COVID-19 at that point. The future is not going to just look like a return to the past.
Definitely. We got into it seemed like really fast. Went from one day, we went out to dinner, and then 2 days later, I was wearing a mask and quarantining. So, yeah. So we're not going to come out of that as fast as we went into it. So what do you see, Jay? What do you see as the challenges ahead for the town government, or what you would like to tell to the residents of Adams about what they're going to be looking forward to?
I think it's be patient. I think we've always prided ourselves on an open form of government where you can just stop by the town hall and have a conversation with a public official. That's still going to be the case, but I think a little bit more planning needs to be taken. So I think we need to move to more of an appointment style, system where we control occupancy a little bit better and look at our workspaces differently. I think for our citizens, I would hope that maybe they don't see much of a difference, that really the public officials carry that burden. We carry that on the staff side. We carry that from the leadership side where we tailor our government services and folks don't see them. But really at the end of the day, and we were discussing this last night at our selectmen's meeting, the public has really adapted well, and they understand. We have not received many complaints at all about limited hours or our Dropbox system at all. So, rather than rushing into things and just opening the floodgates and seeing what happens, I think the message of the public is work with us as we gradually resume back to whatever that new standard is. And then we have to tweak it as we go. The mayor and I spoke this morning. We don't know what our library is going to look like. We don't know what our Council on Aging services are going to look like, but they have very good support working groups that have been pretty good coming up with ideas in terms of how to maintain service delivery and not jeopardize public health. So it's an evolution. It's fail and succeed, and patience. Patience is I think the key for that.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be a slow recovery. We will tweak as needed. We've made adjustments along the way. We'll continue to do that. I think one of the things is for some of the businesses that may see themselves in phase 2 of this, and I'm thinking of restaurants particularly. There are things that people can start to think about. They need to be done flexibly because we don't know what the specific guidelines are going to be. But if you're operating a restaurant and you imagine that, like other places, messages about physical distancing are going to be part of what your operation is going to need to meet. Start looking at your floor plan. How many tables can you fit in there? How quickly can you turn them? What sort of staffing do you need? And then work with in Adams work with Jay's folks and North Adams work with the city team. If folks have ideas, if they have suggestions, if they have questions, we don't have a crystal ball on any of this, but we can make some informed guesses. We can offer suggestions, and if people are willing to take them with a grain of salt, they can start to plan so that when they see themselves reflected in the next phases of the plan, they're able to move a little more quickly. They're able to align their thinking with whatever sector guidance is going to come out for restaurants. And but again, it's going to be a question of how much can restaurants that have done well with takeout continue with takeout to backfill what they would have if they had a full dining room. How much staff do you need to do those things? We can help, but again, responsibility. Business owners are smart. They're thoughtful. They know their numbers. They know their challenges, and can start to think about those things. And as we said with the guidance that's come out already about not being restrictive, or it's a graduated enforcement. We want to work with businesses. We want our businesses to succeed. We want our economy to reopen as quickly as it can. And we're here, that this is it. This is the message is the government is here to support, to business and residents as we always have been.
So have either of you, have your offices reached out to local employers to discuss with them, or to, say you're available as a resource to them?
I've talked to members of the chamber, but we haven't organized a forum or anything like that to this point. Good conversation. Particularly the most recent conversation was with some of our human service folks organized through our operations team. And there were a lot of representatives of particularly the faith community on that conversation.
Jay, has your office?
Yeah, we haven't done any formal outreach. We spoke a lot about what funding opportunities might be on the horizon for the business sector, funnel through the municipalities, which frankly for communities the size of North Adams and Adams, not a lot. Unlike Pittsfield, which has a different funding mechanism. So we've done that. We received a couple of phone calls this morning in my office, and my admin assistant, Deb, directed them to the Reopening Massachusetts. So we're doing a lot of redirecting. And again, a lot of it has been reactive. I went to a local establishment for lunch, and we had a great conversation about occupancy limits and what the future was going to bring. And essentially what the mayor said, start thinking outside the box and call us up, and then we'll come over. So really, we're just starting to get to that now. We're starting to figure out what the proper messaging is. What's hard for us is what we already kind of talked about, is the fact that we are kind of the recipients of the regulation, and we're also the enforcers. We didn't draft them. So that's why we recommend to any business, if you have questions, call us up, and we're going to be the enforcers. So we'll work with you so that when the complaint does come in, we can say, yeah, we're aware of that. We're okay with it. It does meet the spirit of the regulations. That's where we're at.
Yeah, and I think the redirection question's a good one, or a good point to make, because they did put a lot of information out on the Reopening Massachusetts site. So there's a lot of guidance, there's a lot of good information. And I think the other part is, if you look at even the business self-certification, it's a simple form. They're not trying to trip anybody up. And it was intentionally made, simple and clear and easy to print out this checklist, check a bunch of boxes, sign it, and post it as needed. There's guidance and checklists behind it to make sure people are ready to do that. But the public facing piece was made intentionally easy for the business and the customers and the employees to understand and to follow.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being with us. And I know that people can also check you out. You do a duo show on NBC TV, right? So, and you'll be updating on that, I believe, this week as well.
Yep.
Okay. And so hopefully we'll have you back again to talk more, because this isn't over yet. There's more to come.
We've got phases 2 and 3 to talk about.
Right. So we'll be definitely talking again. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thanks, Tammy. We'll see you soon.
Okay,
Take care.
bye-bye.